All right, so today we are flying in 5 below zero weather with 20-mile-an-hour winds in one of the best snowstorms we've had in a while. We've got the Mavic 2, we've got the Phantom 4 Pro Plus, and we've got the Mavic Mini, all geared up with wetsuits, ready for the challenge. And you're looking at the lunar landing pad, which is going to be the landing pad I use to protect the drones on takeoff. So we are set. We're going to be flying from inside the car on the Audi TTS. Each drone's going to go up over the lake, fight against the wind, and see which one is really stronger in this type of situation. We're not only looking for how well it flies, we're really looking for how well it records while it flies. That's going to be the critical thing that I'm concerned with. I know the Mavic 2 struggles a little bit with the camera and the gimbal overload, so we're going to see how that matches up to the Phantom 4 Pro, which from past history can take some unbelievable abuse. Now unfortunately, the Mavic Mini does rely on that phone, and sometimes I don't have that charged up 100%. Today's one of those times, so that's unfortunate. But the Pro Plus is ready to go, and the Smart Controller is ready to go. They're always charged up, ready to go. I can always count on them. But the phone and the Mavic Mini, not so much. So we'll charge it up the best we can, and we'll decide if the weather is even conducive to flying the Mavic Mini, which it might not be. So already we're up. It didn't take but 5 seconds. All we did was put the drone on the lunar landing pad about 20 feet in front of the car, and the Smart Controller recognized it right away. Home point was recorded right away, and we're already up and running. So this looks great. You can see that this wind is a pretty good wind. It's not a gust, it's a constant, and that makes it a little bit more dangerous. So I'm going to keep low. I'm going to fly the Mavic 2 out. I'm going to show you what it looks like. This is the Mavic 2 zoom, and right now I really have like a break wall. I'm not getting the full effect of the wind. I won't get the full effect of the wind until I go out over the pier, and once I get past that pier, that's it. Whatever wind is coming, there's nothing that's going to block it, and we're going to see how the Mavic 2 handles this challenge. So far it looks great. I got the windshield wipers turned off right now, and you can see these are pretty big flakes that we're dealing with. So we're about 6 feet over the Lake Erie, and everything looks pretty good. Remember, I'm flying from inside the car. It's 5 below zero, and the winds are 20 to 25 miles an hour, and you can see there's some action out in the lake. That's just being caused by the wind, and I'm staying low. You know, I might get splashed a little bit, but that's no problem. I've got the wetsuit on. You know, we have experience with how wet it can get, and right about here I'm about to hit the wind full force, and there's a nice little splash of the water, and right here you can see where the gimbal gets compromised. So the gimbal on the Mavic 2 is really susceptible to the wind. And what I mean by that is, okay, we've got a problem. We've got the wind pushing that camera up all the way past no return. It is possible that we're going to end up with a torn gimbal ribbon, and we'll have to see if that happens. But I am getting some errors right now on the gimbal. Camera's working fine, but the gimbal, there might be a problem. So what makes it really difficult is now I can't see. I can't see like I could before, let's put it that way. So I've got to back this up, and I've got to use visual line of sight. And the way I do that is I have a camera set up with a zoom lens, so I can see from my camera sitting on top of the deck, the console on the Audi TT, I can see what's going on. So I have visual line of sight with my human eye, but I have even better sight with the zoom camera. So right now I'm just trying to get this thing back. I could see water coming down, splashing on the lens here a little bit. I think it might even be frozen because it is 5 below zero, so with 20-mile-an-hour wind, it's cold. So I wouldn't be surprised if that froze right on the lens. And at this point, I'm just trying to get it back. I can't see much, so I'm standing outside the car. I'm using everything I can right now to get this thing back. I've drifted at least a couple hundred feet from where I was. So I went sideways maybe 600, 700, 800 feet. And now I'm trying to come back to the car. So this is unfortunate that I can't get that gimbal back under control, which leads me to believe that I might have tore that ribbon, or that the ribbon is in trouble. That it might not be completely torn, but it's definitely not the way it was. So that wind really took its toll. Now, if I can, I'll try to get the gimbal back down, maybe reset it, restart it, and give it another run to see if it might have been a fluke, and just determine where I'm at with the Mavic 2. So it's not as important to me now as whether or not it can fly in heavy wind. What's more important is how much can the camera handle in the wind. Okay, so now I've reset it, restarted it. I'm making sure that the video is good and clear and clean, and the car looks great. So that means to me that that camera is working beautiful. And I'm just doing a half circle around here. But right at this point, everything looks fine. So I'm thinking that the gimbal's fine. The gimbal ribbon didn't tear as I thought it might have, and we're back ready for the next flight. So I'm going to set it up right here for the next flight out. You can see the winds are pretty strong. You can see that sign just flipping around right there, but that's nothing compared to when we get straight out over the lake. So we're about ready to go. I'm really enjoying the snowflakes. These look so good, and when you do some slow motion on them, they look incredible. So this is relatively good footage. And I'm also going a little bit lower. I'm protecting myself. Now I'm at about 4 feet over the lake. And I'm hoping I'm going to get past that point of no return. And I'm hoping to just make a small turn back, not have the gimbal flip up, and kind of preparing for it, having my thumb on the ring to keep it just a little tense. Whereas if I feel the wind, I'm going to hold it down a little bit. And let's see what happens with this type of maneuvering. So everything's looking fine. It's definitely windy out here. It's definitely dangerous conditions. But considering I'm flying from inside the car with 16 satellites, it's pretty cool. It looks amazing on the smart controller. And you can't really see very far out because this snow is serious. And how serious? Well, it's been snowing for like 4 hours. So, non-stop. So this is a really good snowstorm. Alright, so I'm trying it again right here. I'm about at that same point where I'm hitting the wind. I'm a little bit lower. And really, it's looking pretty good right here. A little bit of jitter. I'm starting to make the turn. See if the gimbal can hold. And it is trying. And I am going slow, making the bank. I'm head into the wind right now at the perfect angle. If I can get past this part right here, I'm holding the gimbal down, but I'm losing it. I'm losing it. So now that gimbal is right back to where we started. It's almost straight up, and I can't get it back down. So there might be some damage to the gimbal. And even though I've got it down here again, once I make this turn one more time and I hit that wind head on right about here, that wind's going to take that camera and I think it's going to blow it right back up again. So again, this was kind of expected because this seems to be the weak link in the Mavic 2. You know, as far as which one flies better, the Phantom 4 or the Mavic 2 in the wind, there's no doubt the Mavic 2 has an advantage. It's just more streamlined. But when you consider which one handles the wind better and records better, the Phantom 4 Pro, hands down, is a beast. And you just can't beat that. And this is good for me to make this because I've really been relying on the Mavic 2 for everything we've been doing. But I see now that the Phantom 4 is what I'm going to need when I really need to get things done right. So I can't make this turn. I'm in a little bit of trouble. I'm drifting another couple hundred feet over. And that wind is pushing me pretty good. I'm not trying to fight the wind or anything. I'm just trying to work with the gimbal and the camera. I'm just trying to work with it. And at this point, it's killing me. The zoom is working fine, but I can't get the gimbal pointed down. I've been struggling with this now for a while. I've made a couple turns in a row. I'm gonna have to give up and just bring it back. So let me bring it back. Okay, so I'm gonna land the Mavic 2 down, and let's go ahead and light up the Phantom 4 Pro, and utilizing the same type of wind, the same pathway, and let's see how the Phantom 4 Pro handles this extreme weather. So we've got it geared up with the neon wetsuit, which is blue, and neon blue and black. So it's a nice visual, easy to see, and gives me a really quick orientation. And that's what I really love about it as far as the colors go. So we're gonna head out there. I'm gonna go ahead and show you what it looks like from the Phantom 4 perspective. Here's the takeoff on the Phantom 4. And you'll notice that Phantom 4 doesn't kick up as much snow. And it does not hold its own as well as the Mavic 2. So once it floated right over the car, I've got to reposition it and get it back ready to go out over the lake. And the winds have picked up a little bit here. So this is a great test for the Phantom 4. And we're going to go a little bit more head into the wind, push it a little bit harder, because I know from past experience in the snow what is the Phantom 4 Pro is capable of. So we're going to head out over the water, about 4 to 5 feet over the water, and we're going to go ahead and take it right over the top of the pier. And when we hit the wind head on, watch how the Phantom 4 Pro responds to that type of wind. And I am nice and warm and snuggled up in the car, 74 degrees, 16 satellites. And I've got a great visual with both the camera and I've got it on a visual line of sight. So I'm going nice and slow. I see the birds. I'm well aware of the seagulls. And I've got my path going straight out here. Now right here, I would say that the winds have calmed down a little bit right at this point. So I mean, they could change at any second, but there's been no jitter of the camera whatsoever. It's been smooth for as slow as I'm going. Over this tree. I see a little bit of prop wash there. We're getting ready to hit the heavy wind. We're getting ready to hit it head on. Whereas before we kind of angled off, and now we're just directly into the wind. So this is a little bit different path, a little bit harder. And the Phantom's going to try to make that turn. You notice that you can see the props in the upper corner. The birds have taken to the air. And we made the turn, and that is a win for the Phantom 4 Pro. It's just is. That's phenomenal. So making sure the camera's working well, panning down, making sure it's focused. A little bit of jitter here as we hit a little harder wind. and I'm already bringing it back. So that was a fantastic test. A lot of confidence in that. And you can see that the storm is exactly the same where we left off. All right, so let's take the Phantom 4 Pro one more time out over the water, a little quicker. And let's just make sure it wasn't a fluke. And we'll just take another, a little bit different path. And let's just see how it does. Remember, the Mavic 2 did just fine until it hit that break wall. And once that wind hit it, it just does not have what it takes in order to handle that type of wind, even though it was flying just fine. So really, it's not about how heavy a wind it can fly. It's about how much can the gimbal take before it snaps. So the winds have picked up here a little bit. You could just see it. If you look at the waves, you could see that the wind is picking up right now. Whereas before we went out, I didn't feel it was this heavy. So this is looking really good. Another good test for the Phantom. And I am going to take it up to 400 feet just to see if we can flip the gimbal, at what point the gimbal will flip. So this is looking good. A little bit of jitter to be expected. I'm head into the wind. Who knows how cold it is right here. I mean, it's got to be, if it's 5 below 0, it's got to be colder here. So I'm going to make another small turn. Again, I'm gaining confidence. I'm gaining confidence with the Phantom 4 Pro. And the video looks amazing. Looks really good on the controller, on the Pro Plus and the Smart Controller. I just can't ask for better. And again, the only reason why I don't use an iPad or something bigger is I like how weatherproof both the Pro Plus controller is and the Smart Controller. They both have gained so much confidence with me. You know, and I'm well into over 200 and some flights in the pouring rain. So it gives me a lot of confidence. So right here, I'm just making sure my camera's focused, everything's working, nothing's blurry. And sometimes you need something close in order to focus, rather than just going 400 feet and trying to focus on everything under the sun. This gives you a good point, good starting point, that you're ready to go. Yeah, so really nice. Gonna land here, and then we're gonna set up the next vertical flight. All right, so I'm gonna choose here to go vertical 400 feet. I'm gonna stay within the regulations right now, and I'm going to keep the camera pointed down until I get to about 400 feet, and then I'm going to lift it up nice and gradual and see if and when the Phantom 4 Pro gets compromised. So right now it's just killing it. It looks amazing. And you'll notice so far we really haven't had any snow on the lens. 90% of the time when I fly in extreme measures, nothing happens to the lens. When I do get a drop of water on, I just drop the camera down a couple times, use the wind to isolate the drops, and all of a sudden I have a clean lens again. So it doesn't happen too often, and right now I've been flying for maybe an hour or so. Even though I haven't showed all the video, the lens has stayed absolutely perfect. Not a single snowflake on the lens as of yet. So we're going to go to 400 feet. We're at 16 satellites. Everything looks really good. And then we're going to gradually lift up the camera and see at what point we go down. There's my car for reference. And let's go ahead. We're about 90% into the wind right here. So let's go ahead and lift that camera up. I expect some jittering. And this looks good. It looks good. It looks great. So there you have it. That is something that the Mavic 2 could not have done. So we are 400 feet. It is below 0 temperatures. We're flying from inside the Audi TTS. We're at 16 satellites, and we are in one of the best snowstorms of the year for 2020. So you gotta be happy with what you're seeing right now. The fact that the gimbal is not compromised at all. So this is a win. This is a huge, huge win. And I'm gonna go ahead and bring it back down, and we'll go ahead and move on to the next test. All right, so one of the things you might wonder about is what happens when you fly above the car. Do you lose the signal? Do you lose satellites? Do you lose control? So this is something that you can test on your own, but for the most part, I've never lost signal yet. So what I'll do is I'll just fly directly over the car. I'll go to 400 feet, and I'll see if any satellite signal is lost at all, any video signal is lost, and it just gives you a good idea of where you're at. So these are some simple tests that you can do when you're flying out of your car to gain a little confidence in the signal. And you don't have to have your antennas pointed up or inverted or any kind of modification. I actually have my antennas pointed down below the steering wheel right now to just see if there's any signal drop. I have a blanket. I'm going to put it underneath the blanket. That's not doing anything. So it's really important for you to have the confidence in the signal that you're good to fly. And in this case, we're 100%, 16 satellites, hasn't changed. Video signal is not even flickered, not at all. So I think the next test will be to fly backwards behind the car while my antennas are pointed the other way, just to show you a little bit more confidence in flying from inside the car. All right, before I do that, I'm just going to do one more lift of the camera, get a nice landscape profile right here. And one of the things that I absolutely love about flying inside the car is how easy it is to control your drone. It's different when you're standing up and you're holding it in your hands, whereas you're in the car, you have your steering wheel, it's braced on the steering wheel, and you have unbelievable ability to stay smooth and make really precise adjust movements. And it's something you just can't do as well when you're standing with your controller. So another benefit is just very specific movements, very slow and very precise, and it's really easy. I think anybody that starts flying out of the car is going to find out, wow, what a difference it is to control your drone compared to standing. So this is looking really good. Again, I'm right above the car, and I'm going to go ahead and see if I can't head into the wind one more time. I'm noticing that it's a little jittery right here, but acceptable. So the wind's picking up a little bit. I'm bringing the camera up really slow and gradual, and but it is a little bit jitter right there. And I'm going to go ahead and face the wind and see if we can't flip the gimbal at this point. And at this point, again, it looks strong. It looks really strong. So I'm going to go ahead and bank a little bit here, and I'm going to bring it back down, and now we're going to do the next test. Okay, so this next test, we're going to go ahead and fly backwards, and we're going to fly diagonal away from the controller and see if there's any signal loss, see if there's any errors, see if we lose satellite. As of right now, we're at 16 satellites. It's looking really good. We're flying with the wind right here, and we're just going to cut through the trees. There's a little gap right here I see, and again, with these precise movements, I'm right through it. Nice and easy, right over the top. And again, my antennas now are pointed towards the lake, so I'm literally flying behind myself. And I got my head turned one way to see the camera, and I got the antennas pointed the other way. But this looks good. I'm going to go ahead and bring it back. I don't want to lose visual line of sight right now. Okay, let's do one more run with the Phantom 4 Pro. Let's go out over the lake. Let's be a little bit daring and let's see if we can't maybe splash the drone. Since we have so much confidence now that that gimbal's not going to flip, our signal is really strong. We flew backwards almost 1,000 feet. So things are looking pretty good. So let's just go out here and see what happens. Wind's still about the same. If we see the waves, we know that there's some good wind, good strong winds. And let's head out and see what happens here. So I'm going to stay about 5-6 feet over the water. I know it could be going faster, but that's not the idea. The idea is just to see how everything reacts, how the drone reacts to the wind, the snowflakes coming at it, coming at the lens. You know, it just gives us a really good look and feel for what's possible, what's not possible. And again, with the wetsuit, you know, there's all that extra security and confidence in the fact that the battery's not going to get wet, disconnect, pop out, that the props aren't going to fall off because the prop covers hold the props on a lot tighter, which one of the problems with the Phantom 4 Pro was that the props were loose and they came off really easy. So a nice 30-mile-an-hour wind and you could be in trouble. But with the prop covers, they're really holding everything tight. And if the drone gets splashed, it should not be a big deal. And we have done well over 150 flights with this specific drone, in the rain, in the hail, in the snow, in the pouring rain, in a thunderstorm, in a lightning storm. I can't tell you how many different storms we've gotten it out in. So wind's good. Wind is definitely good right here. You can see a little bit of jitter as we're hitting the headwind. And let's just go out here and see what happens. I'm staying low. I like to play with the water. And we got a good splash right there. And let's head out towards this right. We'll head to the right over here. The wind's going to push me over there anyway. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Phantom tilts a little bit. We get some prop cover in there where we can see the props. So I'm going to hang out here, see if we can't get a splash. Everything is looking pretty clean. And this looks really good. So for the most part though, I think the winds have died down right here. It's crazy when you're looking at that smart controller and you see the view. It is a little bit intimidating. But a while, you know, after a while you kind of get used to it and you get confident in what the smart controller is telling you. You know, how high are you from the lake? And so everything looks smooth. I'm just going to bring it back. Nothing special there. All right, before we put it away, let's take the Mavic 2 zoom out one more time. It's a little bit less windy, and let's just see if that makes the difference. So before I had some warnings on the gimbal overload, and the camera flew straight up and would not come back down. So let's see what happens here. So as far as I can tell, the wind has died down a little bit. I do see the seagulls. They don't appear to be aggressive right now. So I'm just going to avoid them, or maybe they're going to avoid me. And we're just going to head out here. As far as the recording, it looks really good. No jitters, very smooth, head on into the wind, no snowflakes collecting on the lens. Again, it is unbelievably cold. When the water splashed on the drone before on the lens, it actually froze. It actually froze on the lens. So that's something to consider. I actually wasn't expecting the Mavic 2 to be so out of sorts once the gimbal flipped up. I figured it would just kind of recover, and that was a surprise. So I'm going to go ahead, head into the wind right here, make the turn nice and slow. You could see some props in the video. That's because the Mavic is tilted, and we were able to make the turn. We were able to make the turn, so this is a win for the Mavic 2.